Thank you so much, Gerard. I'm Susan Eustace. I lead the voting working group for GBA. I've been involved in elections since 1945. I know a lot about elections. I worked a great deal on with IBM on MQ series, getting it so we could have secure message transport, which I think is fundamental when you start talking about remote voting. And today I want to talk about paper ballots, vote auditing on a national scale, and smartphone voting. Let's get those phones out and start putting ballots on the screen. So the first thing I learned over the years is paper ballots have inherent vulnerabilities. I know that recently paper ballots have been embraced as a good backup system to create a secure system, but we should think about that in the context of the vulnerabilities of paper ballots. The counts change during a recount. You go back to the governor's election in 1960 in Massachusetts. It was terrible. And can we go back a slide, Gerard?
Okay, yeah, I'm just gonna wait until you tell me to advance, okay?
Okay, and so recount with paper ballots, there's just a huge history of the election count changing when they go back and look at the paper ballots a second time. And during an election, the person counting the ballots can change the marks on the ballot. They can put something under their fingernail. There's a number of ways. They can swap ballots. They can put on a bad mark. Stacks of ballots can disappear. Okay, go to the next one. And the way you know this is you look back at the paper ballot case law to see the problems with paper ballots. Extra marks invalidate the ballot. It's easy for a counting team to destroy a ballot without detection by inserting a mark. I used to sell voting machines many years ago, and I did invent the first electronic voting machine. And the people I sold to used to say, well, my Uncle Joe, and they tell me this years later, I really didn't want him to go to jail. He was changing the paper ballots while he was counting them, and I love him. And so I bought the voting machine. So those were the old mechanical machines. And there's a whole lot of things that you can see if you go through the 100,000 court cases of recounts and contested elections over a couple hundred years. Go ahead, Gerard, next slide. Where the results change during the recount. And one of the problems with paper ballots is the old James Michael Curley slogan of here in Boston, vote early and often. And he embraced paper ballots. He built his political machine leveraging the difficulties of managing a paper ballot election. And I dated a guy that used to sit at his table, and this is many years ago, and they would take a stack of ballots and they would mark them the way they wanted the election to come out. And then, somehow that stack of ballots got substituted for the actual stack of paper ballots. So you want to prevent that from happening. And I've worked many years consulting to different places to fix those problems. And the way we fixed it was by having poll workers from opposing parties go in and watch everything and look and make sure that it was truly people from opposing parties that were signing the results. Okay, go ahead, John. And we check the signatures of the poll workers. In Chicago, when we set up the State Board of Elections after the Kennedy election was stolen, in 1970, we were able to stop using all Democrats as poll workers and make sure that it was truly people from opposing parties in each poll site. And then you check the signatures of those poll workers. That's how you eliminate fraud. Get the opposing parties and check the signatures. Let's go ahead, Jaron. And if you want to see the problems with election systems, you go back, you look at contested elections, you look and you see electronic vote tabulating and scanning. It's really good to have a paper ballot backup. of an electronic machine. You want both systems, and you want people from opposing parties watching every single thing that happens. And one of the problems that you see on paper ballots and in a lot of the electronic systems is that doesn't prevent overvoting. I've seen over the years as many as 10% of the votes are lost because of the overvotes. Ballots can be manipulated by poll workers. As I said, with a pencil or pen, stacks of ballots can be manipulated. Pre-marked stacks of ballots can be substituted for real ballots. And then blank votes are a problem if they are not really a blank vote, if they were something that didn't work because of overvoting. Go ahead, Jordan. So here, I went back, I've looked at case law, dug out over the years. I have numerous examples of case law. This is just one example where the question is, are they voting on the voting machine, or is it really a paper ballot? Those are issues that are really significant. Go ahead, Jaron. And I am a graduate of Barnard College, and I studied government and mathematics. I had a dual major, and I love constitutional government. I have a brother who's a very, very well-known constitutional lawyer. He teaches constitutional law, very distinguished, lots of papers. And so constitutional government is just part of my DNA. And the US has a constitutional government, we the people. It has 3 independent branches of government: the courts, the legislature, and the presidency. And no one branch can just say if there's fraud. You have to, yeah, stay with it just a minute. No one branch can say there's fraud. It has to be ultimately the courts. But the courts have to listen to what's going on and what the people think. In the end, the courts are used to determine how many votes were cast, either from fraud or by mistake. And that's what I said. I've gone back and looked at the 100,000 court cases that are really part of our election law. It isn't just the laws that the state governments have passed. It's also all that court cases. Let's go, John.
All right, to 3-minute warning, actually 2-minute warning.
Huh? What's that?
2-minute warning.
Okay. How many slides do I have left?
6 or 7.
Oh, well, we'll just get to what we get to.
Okay.
So the audit process is, and people, you can get this deck. Just ask Gerard or whoever you ask. Just go through the deck if you're interested. And I'm always available to answer questions through the GBA. The audit process, I think, is going to become far more important than it has been in running our election and determining who really won. The poll workers from opposing parties need to be really from opposing parties, because that's, as I said, how James Michael Curley and those guys, the people in Chicago, New York, Louisiana, they all manipulate elections by using poll workers from one party, and then one party, and you see it in South America. Gerard has people that come in and complain about one party can do if you don't have opposing parties watching the process. You have to check on the validity of the balloting. The poll workers watch each other to protect against fraud. In a close election, there are not enough votes to cover the margin between the candidates. And in this case, often the elections get overturned unless you have a really good election system. And that's where I'm going to start talking about the cell phone voting. Gerard, why don't we skip to that one?
Well, I tell you what,
slide, right?
we're at 19. So let's go there. And by the way, I will create there is a QR code that we'll share with everybody so they can get everything they want.
Maybe one up. Is there one? No, up there. This smartphone voting advantages. I see everyone owns a smartphone. We're going to go to
hey Susan, let's cover this in the question and answer period, right? So I can bring this slide back up, but it's 10:20 now, and I got to turn it over to Audrey. So
okay, bye-bye.